On a cold winter morning, the sun had barely stretched its rays when a young German Shepherd pup named Max was dropped off at a local animal shelter. Only a few months old, his ears stood too big for his head, and his eyes reflected a storm of confusion. He didn't bark or whine. He just stared at the cage door as it clicked shut behind him. The shelter staff, used to noise and resistance from new arrivals, were surprised by his silence. The staff tried to comfort him with a soft, well-washed blanket, one of the few things they could spare. Max didn't touch the food or water. He simply nudged the blanket with his nose, pulling it towards him, then resting his head on it as though it carried something he longed for. The shelter was always busy. Barking echoed from every corner, dogs seeking attention, homes, or just relief. Amidst the chaos, Max remained oddly calm. He never barked, just watched. One volunteer, Ellie, began to notice his odd behavior. He always positioned his blanket in a precise spot in the cage, as though setting up something important. Intrigued, Ellie began spending extra minutes near Max's kennel, watching quietly. Every time she placed the blanket anywhere else, Max would drag it back to the same corner. It wasn't just habit. It seemed like purpose. Ellie brought Max a new toy one evening, a small, squeaky ball she hoped would brighten his day. But Max barely glanced at it. Instead, he waited until she left, then nudged the toy aside, pulling his blanket gently, inch by inch, until it was back in place. That night, Ellie sat outside Max's kennel, curious and a bit heartbroken. "What are you doing, little guy?" she whispered. Max lifted his head and looked into her eyes. There was something there. Not fear, not pain, but a deep, aching longing. Ellie felt it in her chest like a weight. The next morning, a surprise shook the shelter. When Ellie arrived early, she found Max's blanket missing. Frantic, she checked the records. No staff had taken it. Then she noticed a trail, a faint dragging mark along the floor, like something had been pulled across it. She followed it, step by step, around corners, past kennels, until she reached an old, unused cage at the far end of the shelter. Inside, Max sat quietly, his blanket wrapped around something small, something moving. Ellie's breath caught. Wrapped in Max's blanket, curled up against the wall of the cage, was a tiny kitten. So young its eyes were barely open. Max was lying beside it protectively, nose gently nuzzling the frail little creature. He had broken out of his cage, dragged the blanket across the shelter, and found this helpless baby. Tears stung Ellie's eyes. Max hadn't been setting up his blanket for himself. He had known about the kitten all along. The staff had no idea how it even got there. The cage had been empty and locked for weeks. But somehow, Max knew. The kitten was barely alive, malnourished and cold. Max had wrapped it in the only warmth he had, his blanket. Ellie called for help, and the team rushed in with emergency supplies. As they lifted the kitten, Max let out a soft, protesting whimper. He didn't want to leave it. "We'll take care of her," Ellie promised, petting his head. Max finally relaxed, though his eyes never left the kitten as they carried her away. Everyone in the room stood stunned. No one had ever seen anything like it. Max, a pup himself, had risked everything for another life. Word spread quickly through the shelter. Volunteers who had never paid much attention to Max now stopped by just to see him. They brought him treats, toys, and blankets, but his interest remained fixed on the little kitten, now named Luna, who was recovering in the infirmary. Luna's health was touch and go for several days. Max watched her from the window, tail wagging slightly when she moved. He only ate when she did, only slept when someone told him she was okay. It was as if they had always been together. Ellie began digging into Max's history. Where did he come from? Why did he care so deeply for this kitten? After several phone calls and records checking, she discovered that Max had been found in a cardboard box behind a dumpster, not alone, but with 2 kittens. One of them had died before help arrived. The second, the record said, was taken to a different shelter due to overcrowding. Could Luna be that kitten? The chances were slim, but something about their bond made Ellie believe in miracles. The staff decided to do a DNA test on Luna. Meanwhile, Max's story started gaining traction online. A volunteer had posted a short video of him dragging the blanket across the shelter. The clip went viral. Millions watched, commented, and shared it, moved by the silent bravery of a young pup. Offers for adoption poured in, but the staff hesitated. Max and Luna weren't just any animals anymore. They were heroes in the shelter's eyes. And separating them? Unthinkable. As the days passed, Luna grew stronger. She began to eat on her own and respond to voices. When Ellie finally placed her back into Max's kennel, the moment was unforgettable. Max gently placed a paw over her as she curled beside him, purring softly. The shelter staff stood in silence, some wiping away tears. It was clear. They belonged together. The emotional depth of their reunion stirred even the hardest hearts. Ellie decided to foster Max and Luna temporarily to give them more space and personal attention. The moment they stepped into her house, Max explored cautiously while Luna curled in a sunlit corner. The connection between them remained unbreakable. In their new environment, Max blossomed. He became playful, protective, and showed an intelligence that amazed Ellie. He would bring toys to Luna, alert Ellie if she made strange sounds, and even refused to go for a walk unless he saw Luna safe and sleeping. One night, a storm raged across the town. The winds howled, lightning flashed, and the thunder boomed overhead. Luna, still tiny and fragile, trembled with fear. Max, sensing her distress, pulled their shared blanket over her and lay close beside her. Ellie watched as Max refused to sleep until Luna calmed down. He kept his head pressed against hers and occasionally licked her ears softly. That night, Ellie understood something deeper. Max wasn't just protecting Luna. He saw her as family. The DNA results finally arrived. The moment Ellie opened the envelope, her hands trembled. And there it was, in bold letters. Max and Luna shared genetic markers. They were siblings. Ellie sat in stunned silence. Against all odds, Max had found his only surviving family in a world full of noise, pain, and loss. He had known somehow, and acted with a determination no human could explain. The story took on new life online. News outlets picked it up, and soon Ellie was receiving interview requests from all over the world. Headlines read, "Pup saves sister with blanket," "Dog's sixth sense reunites family," and "Shelter pup's heroic act melts hearts globally." People from different countries sent gifts for Max and Luna, blankets, toys, and handwritten letters. One child from Japan even sent his allowance with a note, "For Max, he's my hero." Ellie knew now she could never give Max and Luna up. They had become part of her heart, her home, and her understanding of love. She began the official adoption process. The day the papers were signed, she threw a small party at the shelter with staff and volunteers. Balloons, cake, and treats made it a celebration. Max, with Luna by his side, wore a bow tie and wagged his tail proudly. The afternoon sun warmed the shelter's main room as Ellie, Max, and Luna prepared to leave. Volunteers lined up to say their goodbyes, tears and smiles mingling. Max sat patiently, Luna nestled under his chin. When the time came, they stepped outside together, 2 tiny figures framed by a big, hopeful sky. The ride to their new home was quiet. Luna sniffed the air, Max softly panting beside her. Ellie glanced in the rearview mirror to see them huddled together. She felt a lump in her throat. Did they understand this new chapter was for them? They looked comfortable, confident. Their future was just beginning. That first night in Ellie's home brought new discoveries. Max climbed onto his bed by the couch, placing Luna atop him like a guardian. The home was unfamiliar, but their bond made it safe. Ellie watched from the doorway until both fell asleep, hearts connected in peaceful unity. In the dark, Luna's whimper broke the stillness. Max shifted, pressing closer. Ellie knelt beside them, smoothing the blanket. She realized these two didn't just need shelter. They needed each other's presence, and she would safeguard that bond forever. Days turned into weeks, and the trio settled into routine. Max took on the role of protector, leading walks, brushing aside leaves that scratched Luna's paws, and always checking for danger. Luna? She gained strength, curiosity blooming in her bright eyes. She'd climb the couch, explore pillows, always returning to Max's side. One afternoon, they discovered the backyard together. Max bounded ahead, ears perked, while Luna chased butterflies, her tiny legs operating at full speed. Seeing her leap with joy, Ellie's heart soared. She'd thought the world had few miracles until these two taught her otherwise. Their life wasn't without challenges. One day, Luna tripped on a root and yelped. Max froze, then rushed back, nose nudging her gently as she sat trembling. Ellie scooped Luna up and saw a faint limp. Worry surged, but Max's calm presence grounded them. A vet visit the next day revealed a minor sprain. Bed rest was prescribed. Max stayed by Luna's side for days, not leaving her crate. Ellie brought him blankets and snacks. Their companionship transformed what could have been a distressing incident into a testament of sibling care. Adventure called one early morning. The three headed out on a sofa picnic hike at a nearby nature reserve. Max led the way with tail high, and Luna toddled beside Ellie. They paused beside a creek, where Luna cautiously touched the water with her paw, then paused, surprised by the cold splash. Max encouraged her with a gentle bark. Luna tried again, and then again. Soon, she dipped both paws in. Ellie laughed. This was more than fun. It was trust embodied. In that moment, the world felt wide, welcoming, just like Max had given Luna a second chance with a single blanket. The picnic was serene. Sunlit grass, chirping birds, and a soft breeze. Max lay down, eyes closed, as Luna dozed on his side. Ellie sipped her tea, tears threatening as she watched their bond unfold. What began in a cold shelter now radiated warmth across their shared journey. Back at home, Ellie decided to begin training Max and socializing Luna. Max learned basic commands from a local trainer, and Luna, attentive as always, watched his every move. Their progress amazed everyone. Their trust in each other made lessons a delight. One evening, an old kennel volunteer, Mrs. Roberts, visited Ellie at home. She hadn't seen Max and Luna since adoption. When the pair bounded to the door, Mrs. Roberts gasped. Luna jumped into her lap while Max calmly waited, pride shining in his eyes. They toured the house together. Mrs. Roberts knelt before Luna, tears in her eyes. "Max knew," she whispered, he never let her go." Their home resonated with love and respect. The same environment Max had craved when he first arrived, blanketed and lonely. A sudden storm rattled the windows one night. Luna whimpered. Max stood guard by the front door, ears perked to every crack of thunder. Ellie slept fitfully that night, listening to their protector's steady breath. Even when the wind howled, the trio stood together, unwavering. When dawn broke, the storm passed. The yard was strewn with leaves and branches. Max and Ellie worked side by side, clearing debris while Luna napped in the sunroom. It wasn't just a cleanup. It was rebuilding a world that had offered them safety and hope. Ellie organized a thank you gathering at the shelter where Max and Luna were first cared for. The shelter staff, donors, and volunteers attended. Max strutted in proudly, Luna perched on his bed. They were now more than rescue animals. They were loved, adopted heroes. Everyone applauded and hugged them. Ellie shared their tale, from the blanket to their rescue, the DNA reveal, their healing and transformation. Tears filled the room. Max and Luna sat in unison, siblings bound by destiny and unwavering love. Life rolled forward. Ellie wrote a blog detailing their journey, escape from loneliness, bonds unbroken, miracles in shelters. The story spread further, inspiring communities, encouraging animal fostering. Max and Luna became quiet ambassadors of compassion. Ellie spoke at local schools and shelters, demonstrating how a gentle act, like giving a blanket, can spark a life-saving chain. Children watched in awe as Max obeyed commands, while Luna played in his shadow. Their presence taught empathy beyond words. One afternoon, a shy boy with autism visited Ellie's home. Luna immediately warmed to him, crawling into his lap. Max sat close, protective, but calm. The boy's mother watched with tears as he gently stroked the pup and kitten, his first display of trust since they met. Max and Luna, without instruction, offered companionship that transcended species. They understood needs, not spoken, but felt. Ellie whispered, "This is why shelters matter, why every life counts." And in that living room, hearts connected in solace and kindness. Max and Luna grew older, but spirit never abated. On family hikes, Max would race ahead, then wait for Luna to sink steps. On quiet nights, they'd curl at Ellie's feet, dreaming of wild meadows and warm renewals. One morning, Ellie noticed gray around Max's muzzle. Time whispered. She held him close that evening, memories flooding. First meeting, rescue, DNA results, training highs, school visits, storms survived. Love had defined every chapter. Then came a winter evening years later. Max moved slower, breath heavier. Ellie sat between their beds, Max on one side, Luna on the other. She stroked them gently. Words failed impressively. She whispered, "You saved each other. You saved me." They drifted to sleep together, 3 hearts unified. The seasons outside shifted, and inside, history of devotion glowed timeless. Morning came. Max didn't wake. He breathed once more, softly, before closing his eyes forever. Luna nudged him, unaware. Ellie knelt with them, tears falling. They had lived more life in those years than many do in decades. Ellie wrapped them both in Max's original blanket. Luna snuggled in, and Ellie spoke softly of Max's love, his bravery, his unspoken gift. Outside, the world carried on, but inside, their story stood eternal. Months later, Luna remained by Ellie's side, the blanket draped over her. She watched the horizon where Max once ran, his spirit woven into every breeze. Ellie planted a tree in Max's memory in their backyard, roots firm, branches reaching. Ellie tells the story to neighbors, to children in her blog, to shelter visitors. Max lives on, through Luna's gentle presence, through every life touched by his story. And as long as that tree stands, so does Max's legacy. That compassion, love, sibling bonds, and humble beginnings can change the world, one blanket at a time.